Welcome. This is Brandon Farr, and I wanted to talk to you today in an impromptu fashion. You see, it's interesting going on this journey with Net Zero to Hero as a podcast and even doing some YouTube recording. It felt like there was time for a bit of a reflective update because a year in, it's fair to say that we discovered some things along the path and things that I think are relevant to you that I really didn't anticipate when I started this journey, which is beautiful. We knew that there was going to be things that we didn't know, and my commitment to you as an audience and is just to be honest, to not sugarcoat things. There's no agenda here. There's no ads or sponsors that we need to make happy. This is pure and simple our effort to develop high quality, useful content for you as an audience. So yeah, okay, so some reflections, and this isn't rehearsed. This isn't, it's in no particular order, but I have to say, walking into the world of net zero building, high performance construction, the path started with a lot of enthusiasm. I remember just believing that the world needs this, people need this. This isn't about just carbon footprint. It's about quality of life, preserving a sense of home. Building resilient infrastructure so that houses last a long time, and there's definitely been some bumps along the road. I mean, we started off becoming energy advisors and passive house designers, and I have to say the process of becoming an energy advisor was really challenging, much more challenging than it needed to be. And for people in the United States, that's irrelevant to you because this is a Canadian standard. But at this point, we've essentially abandoned our efforts to be energy advisors because it's not helpful to you. You being a client, somebody wanting to do high performance homes, or just wanting to get renovations done. I feel like an energy advisor's job, as it is typically portrayed, is simply to check boxes and not to make decisive constructive input into the building process. It's not what I've experienced. I'm sure there are energy advisors out there who, in specific circumstances, are allowed to participate. That's where I think the passive house designer consultant certification process is more relevant, because when you're dealing with passive house, you're dealing with client profiles where they're geared towards achieving a certain outcome, and there's definitely a collaboration in that discussion, but it's not a popular or mainstream avenue. Again, believing we were going to set the gold tier standard as far as energy efficiency, which passive house represents, that people will be lined up to have discussions, and it just hasn't happened. It hasn't materialized that way. And we can chalk it up to marketing or something along those lines, but I think it's also fair to say that the pulse of the climate out there isn't sending everybody down this path of trying to passive house or high performance construction their homes or even their new builds. What we've discovered is that people are just trying to build homes in an already very expensive market, with the cost of housing going up, the cost of land going up, the cost of construction going up, timelines just stretching out like this. I think it's realistic in the Okanagan anyways to expect a 2-year construction time on your home. Lots are about $400,000 at this point. It's summer 2022. There's just a lot that goes into this, and in talking to people, there's a lot that goes into building a home, and in talking to people who are in the process of building a home, the concept of high performance energy efficiency just isn't at top of mind. And in fact, some of the conversations I've had, and if you listen to the podcast where Dane describes his situation, it became quite a frustration, to the point that I felt his agitation with the bureaucracy of the paperwork filing, that he was washing his hands. I'm putting words in his mouth when I say washing his hands, or he was so frustrated with it, he didn't want to do anything more. And it's not because energy efficiency is bad. It's because the way that municipalities are expecting homeowners to pay for the modeling of that, and then the permit process, and then coordinating the different parties, it's convoluted, it's complicated, it's back and forth, it's a lot of time and energy, and I didn't expect that. I expected that because this is necessary, because it's government mandated, because it's environmentally conscious, that people would really have paved the way, because what we're doing as energy advisors is looking at your building plans. We're describing your wall assembly, seeing what its energy performance capacity is, and that's not rocket science. But the software tools and reporting mechanisms we're using are terribly complicated because they're outdated. And then the paperwork submittal process and checking the boxes creates a lot of paperwork at the city, creates a lot of paperwork for the homeowner, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say I don't feel like it's providing a ton of value to the homeowner, even though I wholeheartedly believe that we need to build homes that don't leak their air through the gaps in the walls and windows, and because that's just responsible, never mind the quality of life for the occupants. And so it's I don't want to say I'm defeated in this or disappointed, because I'm not. I'm like, I didn't expect to be a year into this going, guys, I feel like my last few podcast episodes are kind of like down. And it's okay to talk about hard things in an honest way. This isn't meant to put on rose-colored glasses and paint something in a different light than it really is. And I would rather honestly connect with people's real experience, because I want you to be able to navigate into this with awareness. That's the point of the story. I'm also reflecting that, golly, I thought this would go from like, this is how awesome, this is how amazing, this is how you can, and look how great it is. That was the trajectory of the conversations I expected. But when we went in without prejudice and just asked honest questions, we started to see that there's some real difficulties. And the difficulties aren't the cost. The difficulties aren't the materials. The difficulties is the process of achieving high performance, often from an administrative or a modeling sense. And I'm like, oh, golly, can't we do better? Can't we as an industry do better? And I know there's energy advisors out there, because I hear this from builders you got to go get an energy model on your house before you do get a building permit. So I think those are the energy modelers that are making money, is if you're modeling new homes, because I've described in great detail how frustrating it is on the retrofit side. So there's not a lot of money in that process of retrofitting for grant or a retrofit audit for a grant application, for example, to do a heat pump or a solar panel assembly on the roof. But if you're in the business of doing energy audits for new home constructions that are basically the blueprint strategy, I think there's actually money in that, because the charge rate's higher, but more so the accuracy goes way down. And this has also been an interesting discovery, because as a professional integrity, we're doing this to change the world, the trajectory of climate change and all these things. I've had some builders who care describe how the energy audit they received back from the energy model was actually nothing like the home that they were actually building. And what they discovered is that the energy modelers, energy advisors, are just fudging the numbers. In BC we have something called the BC Energy Step Code, and you got to be at Step 3, which is 20% more efficient than previous building code. Step 4 is 40% more efficient. Step 5 is 80% more efficient. BC is somewhere on that tier depending upon your municipality. But if you have a certain target for Step 3, they'll massage your building plan numbers in the software so that it prints out something that says you pass with a green check mark. And it's not an honest reflection of the energy utilization of those homes. It's just not. And a lot of people sort out their own ethics in business, and homeowners decide whether they want to pay for something that doesn't reflect the reality. But on one hand, I understand that let's just get the paperwork through. I don't understand I want to be careful with my words because I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. It's like, if we're here to energy model, I think an honest reflection, again, is a great place to start. Because what I don't want is for a homeowner to go, hey, listen, I got a house that's going to use the report at the blueprint stage says my house is going to use this much energy. I'm just going to say 10 kilowatt hours per year, just because I'm picking a simple, easy number. And it ends up using 25, and once they've moved in and lived there for a year, because that's just, there's nothing you can do about it then. Like, the cost of reparations for that is just significant. And I'm sure there's some homeowners who are just like, I don't care about the utility bills. I just want to get through the building permit process because that takes so long. But I do think there's honestly some homeowners that when they tried to build a Step 3 or Step 4 home, and the report before they began construction says they were going to achieve that, and then the energy utilization, the actual energy utilization once their family moves in, is nothing. I feel like that's going to be disappointing, because that's just not good. I also, some of the things that we've discovered along the way, and this pertains to our contracting company, where we fix new homes that break. So we get an upfront look at when it doesn't go according to plan, and when you have your multi-million-dollar house that's got mushrooms growing out of the baseboards and things like that. We get called in for that, and I've published some reports, offer those as free resources, because we're discovering that the way that construction is being applied to energy efficiency is creating some really significant challenges for building envelopes, because we still have the insulation in the wall that's wrapped in clear polyethylene for clear poly, and then drywall here. So what's happening is when moisture gets into the wall and it's just really airtight, it doesn't dry. So I've gone into great detail on some of those challenges, because I feel like we're going to head into a situation where there's this big push to get as many homes as possible made to drive down the cost of ownership, because there's more supply. And we're going to rush to build homes, and we're going to try to do that in an energy responsible way, but we're going to do that in a traditional construction practice, which is going to produce a real challenge. And I'm sitting here looking at some of the consequences if we walk down this path and build 10,000 new homes that are full of mold in 5 years, and the owners have to move out, and the envelope needs to be repaired in a significant way. And it's not about just the cost of construction. It's about, I thought I had a home and now I have to move out, and it's not healthy. And what is the implications of living in a house full of mold, and and just like your health, and then the material waste of having to tear portions or all of it down and start over again. And we talk about embodied carbon, and these are brand new, really expensive homes. This isn't, it's not because we're building cheap, it's because we're building in a way that doesn't honor drying potential in a wall. So I see this, and I want you to be aware of it, not because I want you to hire us. I want you to be aware of it so that you can work with the people in your area to build beyond typical. So while you're simultaneously getting energy efficiency, you're also getting resilience. So buildingscience.com, Dr. Joseph Stiebrick has tons of material on this, wall assembly construction designs and things. So there's resources for you that are free, that you can follow, and I see that. So there's people in this space that are doing great work, that are addressing and acknowledging the issues, and also providing real solutions. And that's what we need. We need smart, motivated people to apply their best effort, and hopefully the community awareness grows, so that when people are shopping for homes, they're not just looking at the granite countertops or the double vanity sinks and the master ensuite. They're thinking about how the house is actually constructed and the livability of it over the long term, and things along these lines. So I'm trying to be concise here in reflection. I feel like there's lots at stake at this time. There's lots of people that are spending a great deal of their hard-earned money and a lot of sweat equity to build homes, and also to renovate homes, and I want that to go well for you, because it can. There's ways to do it. I have good news. We're talking about all the challenges, but there's also ways to do that really go well. You can put all the insulation outside of your exterior wall sheeting, so it's exterior insulation, and make sure that the waterproofing is done properly, and insulation's on the outside, and your siding's hanging off of that, and all of a sudden you have a wall assembly that won't fill with mold because there's no vapor barrier sandwich in your wall and drywall. So those are all good things. Again, your case will be unique in your home, but the building science is pretty standard, and it's not more expensive. It's just slightly different than they've been doing it for a while. So you got to get a builder, an architect, designer that's current, that cares, that isn't just pumping you through their process of status quo or how we always do it. It's worth the time to consider how your home is designed before you just figure you want bump outs for your ensuite and alcoves in your master, and like just before you think about the features you want, I think it's really important to figure out what you want to achieve out of your house from a performance standpoint, and the wall assembly design period, and let that also inform how the house will be constructed and what the layout will look like. And just because I find, I'm putting it out here because it's one of these things that matters from my experience, and from my experience in the meeting homeowners who didn't expect to face the challenges that they have. Ground compaction and foundations, if you're building a new home, I'm just saying it is super critical, because we excavate into the dirt and we lay down some gravel, and if it's not compacted properly, or if it's not the proper granularity, what happens is it'll settle, or ground moisture will draw up into the foundation. And most people feel like concrete's waterproof and airtight. It's not. So you need to make sure that there's waterproofing, not just that black tar that goes on the outside. That's to modify the capillary action of water moving into your concrete. It's not waterproof, it's damp proofing. But you need waterproofing all the way around, down your foundation wall, around your footing, and under the slab, and that acts as a brilliant air barrier, which will help with your thermal efficiency. And hopefully you have insulation under there too, just to keep everything, once it's backfilled, keep it all thermally top tier. But that compaction, and then that water break needs to be in place, because what we're discovering now is that water sits in concrete, gets sucked up. You can see this, and because it gets a little darker in color, and it moves actually up the concrete wall, and it gets to the bottom side of your framing, and then it just moves into the wood elements. It goes from concrete to wood. We got that sill gasket there. Well, that's to stop air transfer. It's not just to stop water. So that capillary action of the moisture coming up from the ground migrates into your wall assembly, and that's how water's getting into the walls. And then again, you have to do super airtight assemblies as we move to more energy efficient, and that water that gets in can't get out. And again, we're seeing rotten wall structures because of that. And had there been a little bit more time and attention, and if the owner knew that they needed a very waterproof seal around the outside and underneath their foundation and slab, I think you would be more attentive to that. It's not like it costs a ton more money, but once the earth is all backfilled up, it's really hard to do. So I'm sharing that because if you know, then you can look for it. It's just, I feel like the costs, and this is why I'm doing this, I feel like the cost to homeowners once it's too late is significant. And even if they can afford to pay for it, none of them want that experience. I can tell you that after doing this for so many years. So so here we are. We're on the journey. There's good news. It's possible to build high-performance, energy-efficient homes. The challenge that people are facing is the paperwork process to that is complicated. HOT 2000 is in my opinion only, not an effective tool. It's outdated. The software is outdated, but the modeling assumptions are outdated. I think something like the Passive House, like the PHPP software, which is also an energy modeling software, is distinctly more accurate. So if you put the inputs in accurately, you're going to get a much more accurate output. So as an owner, you can know more clearly what's going to happen. So there's a way to model, and it's not crazy complicated. It's detailed, but it's not complicated. And then the building side, being attentive, especially everything up to lockup, is where I'm going to say all the issues are. Because once, it's not a question of vanities and paint colors that's causing homeowners heartbreak. It's like everything from the drywall through to the exterior siding is the really expensive, complicated things. But the stuff on the inside is unfortunately what you see when you move in and you're doing your occupancy and your inspections. You're looking for the paint. The paint inwards is where people's attention is until the challenges happen. Then it's everything behind the paint through to the siding that's really the complication. So I would say to you, be super attentive with that. I would say do your air barrier and your waterproof membrane on the outside of your house. Don't use OSB. By golly, use plywood. And the simple reality is that it breathes so much better when it gets wet, which means that if it does get wet because something happens like a leak or a flashing or whatever, that the water that gets in will diffuse out. Use a waterproof barrier on the outside that allows permeability, at least 20 perms of permeability, so that, again, drying can occur. Getting wet's not the issue. Not drying is the issue. Use your exterior insulation. There's different types, from like a styrofoam to a mineral wool insulation. You can pick a different one, whatever works for you, but there are different requirements for how you build your assembly, whether there's a drainage mat in between so you don't get complex three-dimensional air networks taking place. So there's pros and cons to either one. I'll let you figure out which carbon intensive option you prefer. But yeah, I just want to acknowledge that then you can move your siding and everything outside and really offset the structural decay issues that we're seeing, and have a great house that'll last for 150 years, and live in it and have a home for your family and community to thrive. That's the point of this. I don't feel like it's responsible for us to build homes that may or may not make it a decade. It's just not necessary, and a total waste of time and money, in my opinion. So I care about this. We're going to keep going. My commitment to you is to continue to walk down this path, keep talking to more people who care, and share that information freely with you. I don't know where it's going from here, but that's just part of being curious and honoring that curiosity. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. You know, it's Thursday, the day I'm recording this, so coming into the weekend, it's in August, and summer's awesome. So all the best, and we'll see you again soon.